Eric Hunley has the whole monopoly. I don't know who that son of a bitch thinks he is.
Welcome to Laid Back Law with your favorite lawyers from around the interwebs.
No. Piers Morgan is doing the hide my boner lean. That's what he's doing. Look at him.
I think this is actually the first time that a billionaire cut safety standards, and it was the billionaire themselves that died.
And that's what made Poliere's. I don't even know how to pronounce this guy's name.
Poliere.
I'm board certified criminal trial law in Florida. I'm your man. Of course, you have to compensate me.
Discussing the most pressing of topics every Friday at noon Eastern Time.
I did this way before him. I had the big brain panel before Eric Hunley even existed.
All right. I love to see that the chat stayed up on the screen, even through the intro. I didn't realize it was going to do that. But yes, we're a minute late because one of the boomers we're having problems with the microphone. And welcome to live, everybody. I first want to start the show off, though, and thank profusely Ian Corzine, who came in and guest hosted last week. And not only guest hosted, literally put together an agenda, was completely organized, and put me to shame. But we're back this week with, again, no real agenda, making it up as we're going along. And let me apologize ahead of time. We are going to start with a story, though, of somebody else who is, how do I say, well, probably not very organized herself, not very talented, and somebody who has just a ton of issues. And it's not Fonnie Willis, but it is Georgia.
Yeah.
And Phil Holloway has the dubious honor of being in the jurisdiction that seems to have all the garbage collected in one area. So you want to kick off about this this judge?
Yeah. So I sent you another picture, and in a minute I want to get to that. But yeah, this is something else. This is this is over in Douglas County, which is just 20 miles or so to the west of Atlanta. And if you thought that the shenanigans in Georgia and the crap at the courthouse stopped at the county line, you'd be mistaken. So you got this now former judge over here. She was removed. We have something called the Judicial Qualifications Commissions. It's a really small state agency, but it's got a lot of power. It's the only agency that can do anything, to a judge, as far as punishment or whatever. And they gave her the max. They yanked her from the bench. It was a unanimous recommendation from a hearing panel that conducted this investigation, and of course the Supreme Court of Georgia signed off on it. She was the subject of a lot of local television, their investigative reporting things. The commission, Eric, said that she was guilty of systemic incompetence. Systemic incompetence because she ignored courthouse rules. She was abusive to personnel and
this fine juror here.
Saucy. Yeah. So yeah. And so part of what they had a problem with, as you can see in that picture there. So she put that out on, I guess it's Instagram, right? And she's a judge, and she's out here telling people to send her money on Cash App and everything like that. So they, they're not supposed to do that. Now we can do it. We can do it as LawTube streamers. And of course, I want everybody to go to all of our pages and check out ways to support all of us. Of course, that's
super chats are very welcome.
Well, to all of us. So we do this because, this is our job. Right. And so, but judges aren't supposed to be out there begging for money, like that. And so the hearing panel, but if that's all she had done, she would probably be okay. But one of the things that, the straw that broke the camel's back, there was a woman who, she simply wanted to amend her marriage certificate to put the real name of her recently discovered biological father on it. And so when she was originally got married, she put her uncle on there, because her uncle had raised her. But years later, she learned her real father's name. Yep. And and years later, she put her real father on there. So she wanted to return to do that. And the judge wound up giving her a 20-day jail sentence for contempt. It's unclear what this woman supposedly did wrong, but she threw her in jail for 20 days for contempt, and she's there without a lawyer trying to look. And I'm a lawyer, and I can't even sort out what the hell to do in probate court. So, a private person like that going in pro se. Anyway, she wound up serving 2 days.
There's a lot to it, though. Can we describe what probate court is in Georgia and how powerful these judges are and the level of expertise that is necessary for that particular court?
Yeah, well,
as long as the rule against perpetuities isn't involved,
get ready to
I can follow.
Get ready. Look, outside the metro Atlanta area, I mean, you don't even have to be a lawyer to be a probate judge in most counties in Georgia. You can have, maybe it's a high school education. I don't know. Maybe it's a GED. You don't have to have much. You just have to get elected. So when I was growing up as a deputy sheriff in South Georgia, sometimes we would get warrants even signed by a probate judge. Look, these judges have no training in the law whatsoever, none. And yet they can have trials, at least in the context of things under their jurisdiction, wills, trusts, estates, and that sort of thing. But they also can get into the appointment of certain local officers in the event of a vacancy and things like that. So
God. Do the probate judges handle guardianship and conservatorship?
Yeah.
Oh,
sure do.
Oh boy.
Yeah. And so when you get, and now they do send them to like a 2-week school or something like that. So. But wow. Of course you get fully trained after 2 weeks on all things probate. But in any event, all you need to do is get elected. And then apparently once you get elected, you got to get your socials up and you got to get your Cash App links out there. And that's how they make money. They also handle some criminal cases in some jurisdictions. They'll handle misdemeanor or minor or even traffic tickets in jurisdictions that don't have, the appropriate kind of what's called a state court or other misdemeanor court. So, I go outside Atlanta on a DUI case, and next thing you know, I'm in a county dealing with a judge, deciding whether or not I'm going to have a trial, and the judge, has a high school education.
So it's kind of like justice of the peace in Utah.
It can be similar to that.
It gets better, Phil. I don't know if you know this because we're cobbling the story at the last minute, but there's other ways you can make money. Did you know that this judge in 2020 complained that her salary was so low at $127,000 a year that need to be raised? So she was being paid now $280,000 a year.
Damn.
Everybody's racist. So this judge being paid more than the of the state Supreme Court.
Yeah, that's 3/4 of what the president of the United States makes.
Think about that for a minute. Her first
just insane.
She was saying, "I'm not being paid enough. I should be." And they caved. By the way, they had a budget deficit. But wait, there's more. This judge also, she's so poor. She's hurting so badly on money. She needs Cash App, everything else. She uses the city credit card to pay for her insurance, to pay for her fuel, to pay for, any incidental things in her life that she doesn't wish to pay out of her pocket.
Yeah. I mean, it's like, sometimes I don't understand why these folks go into politics or in the legal system just to engage in grifting. And it seems like we have a lot of that around here now. And, it's unfortunate, and it is embarrassing to my state and to the local area where I live here in the metro area of Atlanta. But I do want to say this is, not everybody's like this. Okay. We just have just a small handful, but unfortunately, these are the ones that make the news, right? And these are the ones that people want to talk about. And it makes it seem like we're all just a bunch of corrupt country bumpkins down here. But anyway, we're not. And by and large, most of the judges are fully above board. It's very rare that judges get removed like this. We now have a prosecutor's something that's similar to this that will be like an oversight for prosecutors to kind of rein them in if they get out of control. So Fannie Willis did not want that, but she's got it and it's coming. It got passed and they're setting it up as we speak. It's brand new. But we do oversight of judges, and once upon a time, a long time ago, somebody sort of talked to me about whether or not I might want to take over as the head of that agency. And I was like, I'm honored, but I'm like, no. It's just, it's not I don't want to travel the state, living out of a suitcase, investigating, these part-time magistrates or these probate judges that have never been to law school. And by the way, we can have magistrate judges who write criminal arrest warrants who are also not lawyers. So these are people that are signing warrants for the arrest to put your ass in jail, and they don't know the first damn thing about criminal procedure or criminal law, except for maybe a 2-week course for new judges.
Wasn't that the same judge position that Nathan Wade and Fonnie Willis once held?
Nathan Wade and Fonnie Willis were what we call municipal court judges. And that's so like this, let's say Nathan, for example, was in the city of Marietta, which is in Cobb County, just north of Atlanta. It's a suburb. And even the chief judge up there is a part-timer. He's the one that's there now is the chief judge. He actually practices full-time criminal defense law. He's a good friend of mine. I know him very well, but he's the chief judge in Marietta. But he can't be there every time they hold court because he's probably defending another case up at Superior Court. So he's got a stable of folks that'll come in and fill in for him. And those are called the associate judges. And so when he needs an associate judge, they just go down the list and see who's next or who's available. And so if you're an associate judge of the municipal court, every once in a blue moon, or maybe once or twice a month, even, you might get called down there to sign the back of traffic tickets when people plead guilty. So that was the extent of Nathan Wade's big judgeship that Fannie so proudly boasted of. It was just it was misleading in the extreme to say he had a long judicial career, because I've been a part-time judge. I probably sat on the bench as many times as Nathan Wade has, but I don't go out holding myself out as a former judge, right? I mean, it's just something that when the judge said, "Hey, can you come fill in and handle a traffic calendar this afternoon?" Sure, I'll go down there. It pays $150. It's just not a big deal, but you do it because you want to be friendly with the courts and that sort of thing. But you don't hold yourself out as a judge or a former judge if you go down and do part-time traffic court every now and then.
All right, fair enough.
At least I don't. I mean,
I see there's a super chat about the Trump gag order, et cetera. I'm going to wait on that, though. I want to cover Chad Daybell. I think, Steve, you said something's going on with that case. I imagine, Jeff, you're probably covering that, too, I have a feeling.
Tangentially, I mean, it's involved, and it's in the middle of my night, so I kind of watch the recaps and things. But
Andrea,
covering it.
I have really not been following Daybell. No.
Okay. No worries. Then. So, Steve, it's all on you. Carry us. What's going on with him? And
I don't know that there's a reason to pay too much particular attention to Daybell, because he is obvious scumbag and he's going down, right? But what was interesting was the judge yesterday in a rare Rule 11 situation. It's always out there as if you do litigation, it's something that's lurking out there, and that says that lawyers can't file something frivolous to the court, right? Or else you may be sanctioned. So some lawyer filed a motion on the eve of a holiday, I think it was Easter, and asked for that trial to be continued. And he filed the motion saying he was the attorney for the defendant, which was coming as a surprise apparently to everybody, including Chad Daybell, I think, because he wasn't his attorney.
And it was like 2 days before trial, too.
Yeah. It was right on the eve of trial. The clerk was gone on vacation. She had to come back. The judge didn't appreciate any of that at all. And so he had him in court yesterday on show cause, and it was for Rule 11. The guy had hired his own attorney, but the judge said, for purposes of Rule 11, you're going to need to answer me. You're the attorney who filed in my courtroom. You don't get to stand behind another attorney and filter your answers that way. You need to talk to me about what you filed. So he claimed that when he said he was attorney for the defendant, that was a typo. It was in his template. The judge went through, I guess it was in there 3 times. And why didn't you spell the word motion correctly and the word continue? And the judge it's a very level-headed judge, but he was not happy at all. The guy had no excuses for it. He said, I should have filed this as a citizen. And the judge said, well, you didn't. You put your bar number on here. You filed it as an attorney and called yourself attorney for the defendant. The guy actually said, well, I think we're talking semantics. And the judge said, no, we're not. And no, you are not. I mean, I can't imagine any lawyer thinking when you litigate that it doesn't matter whether you're how you put something to the court or whatever. Are you kidding me? It would have been frivolous in any event. So the judge ended up finding, well, this is frivolous, and I'm going to task you with the cost of this. I think, for the state and for the defense. I didn't hear the defense say anything in this, or the judge blaming them at all. I don't know where this guy, I know there's a story behind it of why he floated in from the ether and at almost midnight made this filing on a holiday weekend, as Jeff said, right before the trial's supposed to start, to become an intervener in this case. And a judge smacked that down pretty good. But you have to be pretty dumb to do that, I think. And so I'm not surprised he misspelled most things, maybe even his own name, if he was dumb enough to take the tactic that he did and file it like he did.
From what I read, he said that the defense was talking to him about possibly assisting with the representation. So he had to slow things down. And the judge said, how many years has this been on the docket? And now you want to try to slow things down?
All right. So Ian, Runkle the Bailey supposedly has a video coming out today. If you are listening, I did DM you a link if you wanted to jump in and set us straight. If not, that's fine. Let's see, who do we have next? Okay, I've got a couple super chats about the same thing, and maybe you guys would have some ideas. Joe has, I guess he's sued the judge. You guys are probably following it more than I am, but he's sued to try to get the gag order removed. But he's for Trump in New York. I apologize. He needs some firepower. And obviously, I'm not a lawyer and I can't provide that firepower. I'd recommend he talks to his buddy Ron Coleman and get some firepower there. But do you guys have any suggestions or ideas of whom he could reach out to maybe help things out?
You picked mine. I was going to say Ron.
Anybody, I mean, it could be pie in the sky, and I don't know, legal eagle. No,
Fanny might.
Why
have
aren't
some
Trump's lawyers do? I mean, why aren't Trump's lawyers fighting for it, or are they just too busy with what they've got going on right in front of them?
I have no idea. I'm always curious about Trump's legal selection. I don't know if it's in law or looks sometimes, but he does seem to have models as lawyers. And again, they could be the most qualified people on the planet, but there seems to be a type of lawyer.
I have no problem with that.
First Amendment lawyer that Amber Heard hired for her appeal. That's the next one I think of. If you can handle that case, surely you can handle any First Amendment issue.
Yeah, there you go. Any other ideas, David? I mean, you're the big timer. You know all the big names. Who should Joe recruit, and can Barnes help him push it more, since he sort of challenged him to do it?
I don't think Joe needs anybody in terms of a bigger name. I don't think it's going anywhere regardless. So I mean, you could have I said you could have Mother Teresa present that motion. I don't see it going anywhere, just because the courts, at least that level, is not going to change anything. But Turley would be my number one pick, and maybe Dershowitz is a second. Dersh. Well, Dersh has got baggage because he's he's got baggage on two fronts. Turley seems to be pretty clean and pretty reputable.
But if anybody here happened to be able to contact Dersh and his people directly, it would be amazing.
Let me just get my cell phone here. Oh, hold on. Oh, what's that? Hey, Dersh.
Anyway.
Sup, D?
We'll see what we can do. How's everyone doing?
Hey, good morning. Good morning. We'll go jump back into Runkle, Daybell. We talked just a little bit. Is there anything other than that 11, whatever, Rule 11?
The one thing that is frustrating me about that one is I tried to get a copy of that filing because I thought that'll be really interesting, but they sealed it. And
I'm filing
I don't understand why they sealed that one. Like the weirdo who was going, I want to intervene, they sealed his filing.
No.
And they've directed all of the attorneys not to disseminate or disclose it. So it's like, why?
Okay, so
we're talking about the gag order. That is that what we're talking about?
No, he was asking about the Daybell one.
Oh, okay.
Sorry
about that one. All right, my bad. Sorry.
No, we circled back because Runkle was doing a video on it today, so I didn't know if there was anything else that he wanted to fill in, which is cool. Okay, so let's go. Now we've got a bunch of people here, and we can get into a nice meaty subject. and that would be obviously the Trump case in New York. And I'm curious on people's thoughts on the jury situation. And I don't know how to put it. I think actually Tim Pool had an interesting take or way he stated it. Is there a risk with being on the jury in New York? Because if they find out your name and you live in New York, can you give him a fair trial without risk of essentially what Tim Pool called it low-level terrorism of, like, let's say you voted for Trump, where it wouldn't be quite enough to make the news, but it would be enough to make your life absolute hell.
Well, wasn't one of the jurors just dismissed because they found out that she'd been accused of vandalizing right-wing
one was on that
election things?
Another one was dismissed because she said family members and friends have gotten word that I'm on the jury and I can't give a fair assessment.
All right, I got a thought on that. It seems to me that if you get on that jury, right, and you tell your boss, look, I can't tell you where I'm going to be, but I'm going to be gone for 6 weeks. I got jury duty. I'm gone for 6 weeks, and you're going to have to make do without me. They're going to know what the hell you're doing because there's not that many, probably no other 6-week trials that are underway. So if you get on that jury, your family and your friends and your employers, coworkers, they're going to know, and there's nothing that anybody can do about it. It's just the way it is. And no matter what guardrails the judge puts up there and says, okay, to the media, you're not supposed to disclose these details, or if they put it in writing, so only the lawyers know it, whatever. I mean, there's ways to minimize the issue of people being concerned, but you're never going to completely make it anonymous. It's just, unless you just, I mean, maybe there was some gangster or mob trials where they had completely anonymous juries, but still in this day and age, somebody's going to find out. And so you might be sitting there, I'd really like to acquit Trump because I think Alvin Bragg is full of shit. And I'd really like to acquit him, but all these people at my job are going to give me hell because they all hate him.
There's not a snowball's chance in hell he's going to get a fair trial in New York. First of all, the jury members are not going to remain anonymous for the practical reasons that are obvious here. And unless I'm totally biased, it does seem that the witness intimidation, the jury intimidation, very much is one-sided. When it's known to the right or the conservatives, what they do is dig up social media posts to reveal bias. When it's revealed to the left, what they do is throw pigs' heads at Chauvin's expert witness's former house to intimidate them out of testifying. So it seems one-sided. You're going to end up necessarily with a jury of women or people like the woman yesterday who would effectively lie to get on the jury, accommodate her schedule to get on the jury, say that she has no biases, and then go on to admit that she thinks Trump is a racist, misogynist who endangered her and her entire family. So it's a foregone conviction. It's a kangaroo court at this point.
Andrea, what are your thoughts on this? Because you're doing criminal defense, and sometimes you can have a criminal defendant that is as polarizing as Trump, and there can be the risk. And as David put, there was that. What about Antifa? Antifa is very well known for antics, and they're not Trump supporters. They probably would be against jurors who could go the wrong way.
Well, I think that's the real challenge here is really the extent that you can rely on the jurors to be honest and forthcoming in their responses. I mean, for the reasons everybody's pointed out, there are always going to be some people that are going to have an incentive to want to be on the jury for one reason or another, whether it's because they firmly want to acquit regardless of the evidence, or whether they firmly want to convict regardless of the evidence. For me, as a person who is selecting a juror, as a criminal defense attorney, really what I'm trying to select for, I've never bought into these sort of segmentation kind of views of jury selection. We need, somebody of this demographic, this age, this range of professions, things like that, because I don't think it captures what is really fundamentally at issue with a juror's skill set. And what you're really looking for is you're looking for belief perseverance, and how strong is it? As a criminal defense attorney, the people on Trump's team, they're going to want people who are open to new information. They want people who are skeptical. And so that's the type of questioning that I like to try to engage in when I'm looking for jurors is just ways to sort of test how quickly do you form a belief, and then how strongly do you hold on to that belief once you're confronted with some type of contradictory information. We've all seen, the phenomenon where people sort of lose their minds. They get very upset. They come up with a billion excuses. They just deny the existence of alternative evidence. Those are things you do not want in a juror. So to the extent that you can flesh them out, that's really the important thing that you need to know. So again, though, the problem with that and the challenge with that is the jurors can be putting on a presentation themselves. They're not necessarily sitting there just giving the authentic, true answer. There's a lot of other things going on in how they present themselves in this process. So I don't envy these lawyers at all. I think picking a jury here is an extremely difficult task.
Is there a case for a change of venue, or is he just too big of a name to even bother? I mean, I from what I understand, upstate New York isn't quite as anti-Trump necessarily, or they might have more of a balance. I mean, would he get a fairer shake potentially in a more rural area in New York? Anybody have thoughts on that?
Yeah, just a little ways up north, right? I mean, he's there's a lot of areas in New York that are more than 12% red, which I think he got 12% in Manhattan last time, 10% maybe the time before that. But yeah, you can go outside those boroughs. If there's a change of venue, you're going to have an entirely different, probably more fair pool of potential jurors.
Who it was in which case? It was in the Wisconsin case, the Derek Chauvin case, where they said, if you move it out of the big cities, Antifa tactics are a lot less likely or a lot less amenable when you're in country town. And I say that non-judgmentally. It's like you won't see these people smashing windows in rural areas where people
they'll get arrested.
Or they'll get arrested by a law enforcement that enforces the law, or they'll get shot by homeowners that have guns. And, you wouldn't have the same type of witness intimidation outside of a big city where, like that woman, the juror said, yeah, well, it's a pretty liberal area, so they'll. But yeah, for sure, it would be better. But we haven't seen a change of venue in any of these big cases, so we're not going to see one now.
It's too inconvenient. The judges don't want to inconvenience themselves.
Well, Mershon wants this one as well, so he's not going to let go of it.
Well, and judges are going to bend over backwards to find that, jurors who say they can be fair and unbiased can in fact be fair and unbiased, regardless of, what other contradictory evidence there might be to call that into question. And so as long as they concede what the judge says is a fair and unbiased jury, they don't have grounds to change the venue. It's really only if the pool is too tainted that they would have a justification to make that request. So it's sort of a little bit circular. The change of venue it isn't on the table if you're able to seat a jury, and you're able to sit a jury as long as they say they can be fair.
Shocking that Judge Mershon would refuse that request.
I mean, it certainly is the tendency these days that they'll try to find a pool if they can, and there's a lot of people in Manhattan, so they got that going for them, as opposed to like Kohberger, where no one is there, so that makes it much more difficult to find a pool of people who haven't heard about it. I mean, Manhattan is huge.
That's fair, and that's a great segue. Andrea, anything going on with Bryan Kohberger?
We did. We had a big development this week with Bryan Kohberger, which was the supplemental notice of alibi. So since last summer, the state has been demanding that Bryan Kohberger provide an alibi notice. And the way that this works under the Idaho rules, it's a fairly common process in a lot of different states. But if a defendant is going to provide an alibi, they're going to present evidence of an alibi, you weren't there at the time of the crime, then they have to give notice of that, and they have to provide notice of what their actual evidence in support of that is going to be. And the idea is because you don't want the defendant to be able to show up, on the day of trial, sandbag the prosecutor with an alibi defense that came out of nowhere. The prosecutor needs an opportunity to be able to investigate it. So for almost a year, I mean, quite a few, about 10 months, I think, since the prosecutor filed their notice, this has been kind of hanging out there. We got a preliminary disclosure in fall of last year. But the defense is basically saying, look, he was out that night. He was driving around that night, but we don't have the specifics of exactly where he was at any given point in time and who's going to support that. So the judge had given them additional time to be able to make this disclosure. So that's what came out this week. And their disclosure is that they are going to be relying on the cell site location information data. They are contending that that is going to support his alibi that he was not in Moscow at the time of the offenses, that he was moving. His cell phone would put him in a different location than the location of the white car that the police were tracking on the video. And so by being able to decouple the phone from the white car, it essentially blows a pretty big hole in the state's circumstantial theory of how all of these pieces fit together, right? They found the white car out front of the King Road residence. They then tried to tie that in with Bryan Kohberger's phone. So if that link falls apart, it really calls into question their ability to link Bryan Kohberger to the white car, to the killings.
What are your personal thoughts? I mean, because I feel like Kohberger has been advertised as, such an obvious slam dunk guy, did it, creepazoid, stalking around afterwards, showing up at parties, all the typical serial killer or mass murderer type things, helping the investigation, writing to the BTK killer, really, really, really bad dude. But it seems like not everything's holding up evidentiarily. But what are your feelings? Is it just a case that, they're picking holes in because there's holes that can be picked, and he really truly is a creep who probably did it, allegedly, obviously? What are your feelings? Because you know more about this than anyone.
Well, Eric, my feeling is that this case it's set to be potentially a exceptional example of the power of priming in the media and the extent to which the media has programmed the public from absolute day one of this case of him coming into the public arena as somebody who's creepy, as somebody who's scary, as somebody who's weird and different, maybe an incel, maybe has rage issues. I mean, all of these things that I mean, I got to tell you, just from my personal impressions, sitting in the courtroom, watching these hearings, seeing his demeanor, and having had experience with representing the kinds of people who commit violent crimes, he doesn't strike me as any of these things at all. He comes across as extremely well contained, good impulse control. If there's one thing about like a rage, multiple murder, stabbing kind of incident that characterizes it to me, it's lack of impulse control. I mean, so I just from kind of a personality standpoint, I'm really not seeing, I guess, the same thing that I feel like the priming is out there to suggest. So that's the real hurdle that he has, for the same reason that, I just talked about with jury selection, the belief perseverance thing. Once people have got it seized in their mind that he is guilty, he's the one that did it, it doesn't really matter how weak the state's case becomes, because people will make excuses. They will imagine scenarios for how he must still be guilty anyway, even though we've undermined a significant basis for thinking he was guilty in the first place.
We're going to find out that Andrew's been writing him letters in prison for the last couple of I'm joking. But back up 2 seconds. Someone made a joke about him killing cats. Is there any story about him from childhood killing animals?
Nothing that I have heard of, and certainly nothing that I would find credible at this point in time. The misinformation that has been out there in the media regarding this case is just legion. It is rampant. We just dealt with that.
From unnamed police sources.
From unnamed police, I mean, from everything, from people coming out of the woodwork, some from anonymous, some from, I mean, it's just all over the place. And so, I mean, to such an extent that they had to deal with this over the last couple of weeks when the defense is trying to do their survey of the prospective jurors in support of their motion to change venue. And they're asking about so much of this misinformation that has been out there about this case. And it caused a big, hubbub because the state doesn't like them answering these questions. They're arguing that the defense is tainting the jury. The defense is saying, we didn't put this information out there. Other people are putting these fake things, these false pieces of information out there, that he stalked the victims, that he followed them on social media. How on earth are we supposed to be able to demonstrate and measure the effect of those types of pieces of false information if we can't ask prospective jurors about them?
Have they proven conclusively, like in the Reddit threads, that was actually him?
I have not seen any conclusive proof that it's him.
No.
It's a circumstantial case at best. It always has been, which in and of itself is not a problem, right? Lots of cases are circumstantial. But the problem is that when you rely on a circumstantial case, you typically rely on a lot of different layers of corroboration. So a really good example of that is the Long Island serial killer case. If you go in and look at the probable cause affidavit in that case, by the way, I've been planning a video on this for like forever, so I will get to it at some point. But I'll just kind of give you the rough outline. If you look at the probable cause affidavit in that case, what you see is exactly the type of multi-layer corroboration that I'm talking about. DNA that is confirmed by video evidence, that's confirmed by communications, that's confirmed by location data, that's confirmed by eyewitnesses. I mean, it's just layer on layer on layer of stuff. With Bryan Kohberger, they don't have that. They have a white car that may or may not be very clear in the videos. I mean, we know the FBI had difficulty identifying what type of car this is when they put out the be on the lookout for it before any arrests were made. They made changes to the type of car they were looking at. So we don't know how clear it is. They have relied on this link with the cell site location data to say, well, it was his car because his movements on the cell site location can corroborate the movements of these car. That's what we're seeing from this alibi defense now, is that might not actually be the case. Cell site location information data is not necessarily always that precise. And that's all corroborated by a small amount of trace DNA on the knife sheath that was found with the victims. So that's the bulk of the case. And the problem here is that the levels of corroboration that were expected have not panned out. The defense has told us in their court filings there's no evidence of any connection with any of these victims. So we have no idea why he would have chosen them or why he would have, why he would want to kill them.
Isn't this
There's
a problem?
no blood or DNA in his car after supposedly, committing four stabbings, and you didn't leave a single trace of it in the car that you drove away 15 minutes later. There's really, really big holes in the inferences here that the state is asking people to fill with whatever they can imagine. I mean, people are coming up, like I said, with things like he must be guilty, therefore he saran wrapped his car, and that's why there's no blood in it.
That seems ridiculous.
Yeah.
Trained people can't get it that well done.
Is that the problem, the type of case, though? And what I mean is that you brought up Long Island. Very different, though. That's a serial killer. So it's multiple crimes, locations, and things like that. Isn't the fact this is a mass murder a problem in of itself? Because it's a one-time incident, and you can't use the great argument of, well, the killing stopped because they already stopped. It was a completed act versus like a serial killer. Sometimes if there's a question whether they were the ones who did it, didn't do it, or whatever, or if they were the only killer, well, the killing did stop. So that does kind of lend a little bit of foresight to it. In this case, there's only one crime scene total, and no chances for mistakes and corroboration.
Question: no blood of the victims anywhere on Kohberger or his car.
Correct.
Not his car, not his apartment, not his.
Yeah, that just seems ridiculous.
And I mean, I'll ask a stupid question. Yeah. Obviously, they check the drains for if he washed clothes or washed his body.
We have to assume so. Yeah, they searched his entire apartment, searched his car.
Well, that got Zachariah Anderson convicted.
Well, that's
No,
what I'm getting at. But in
Yeah.
Zachariah's case, they had that one little drop of whatever. So
Yep.
not even a drop. The rumors of
even a
him
drop.
stalking, dating the girls, following around.
Not
No
true.
proof.
The judge has confirmed in court, not true. Those are false.
Has there been any more about the DNA on the knife snap, on the sheath snap?
No.
It's
So
touch
that
DNA.
was, yeah, it's all we know at this point is that it's trace DNA. It's an extremely small amount of DNA. It's the only place, as far as we know, that it was found. There hasn't been any disclosure of other DNA of his found. And so, yes, it very much raises, for me, the question of secondary transfer. This is the kind of thing that can happen. You can shake somebody's hand and then go and grab a murder weapon, and you can transfer the DNA of the person whose hand you shook onto that knife. This is very well
DNA?
documented.
Whose DNA?
Right,
was found on
Bryan
the sheath?
Kohberger's DNA. Trace amount of Bryan Kohberger's trace DNA on the button of the knife sheath.
So
That's the case.
And that could only prove that he can legitimately.
It proves his DNA is
that he
there. It
touched
doesn't prove why.
It means he touched it at one point, or
Does
he
not
knew,
mean he touched it.
Doesn't mean
or
he touched
he
it.
was
It
in
does not
contact
mean.
with somebody who did. He somehow,
Or the knife.
I have a link. I have a link that I'm going to go ahead and drop in the private chat, just so you can see
If I may
how
ask,
tenuous these connections can be.
No, I get it. I'm trying to word it out, but I am saying that he did somehow come in contact with whomever or whatever handled that knife. In some
I'm
way.
still concerned that Steve
Not
Gosney lost his
necessarily.
K-bar on the weekend of the killing. I'm concerned about that still.
But
It
when
can be
did they-
several steps away, right? Like you touch
Yes.
something, somebody sets the knife on the place you touched, and it gets transferred that way.
Yes.
The other thing
when did they find that DNA on the knife sheath, like date wise?
Well, that's a good question, because it appears that they did not find it during their initial testing, that it was during a subsequent retest that now this DNA was able to be developed. And so that's going to be a critical question, because obviously if it comes in later in the process, now we've got a contamination potential.
Well, and then the question
Steve,
is,
can you jump in on this? Because I don't want to lose track here.
Yeah, I just mean it when Andrea called it trace DNA rather than touch DNA. That is, in my opinion, the better way to describe it, because of like what Ian said. You don't have to touch it for it to be transferred. Granted, I think the guy did it, but to the points of his defense, let's be accurate, and it can get there in other ways than he touched it. Right? That's
I
was
did
actually-
it.
I wanna ask you,
If they can't find any of the victim's blood anywhere in the car, anywhere in his apartment, anywhere his blood, I'm going to go with he didn't do it. There's just no way he's good enough
It's
to pull that off.
improbable.
The other
Highly
thing
improbable.
that there's the suggestion that he saran wrapped his car, and people who
Yeah,
think
right.
this don't actually
Give me a break.
like
Well, I don't know.
do this as
This
an
is-
experiment.
this is-
Go and
this is
saran
why-
wrap your car.
Yeah.
And the thing you'll notice is that saran wrap actually is pretty bad at keeping liquids out of things, because
That too.
liquids will travel between the layers of saran wrap through capillary action. So if you do this, you will get DNA in that car. Like, you could get a forensic team and ask them to do this, and they wouldn't be able to pull it off. So suddenly Kohberger is like simultaneously this master criminal who's able
He's
to
Dexter.
entirely like insulate this car in a way that a person could be covered with blood and not transfer a single droplet. And keep in mind, when
Anywhere.
we talk about the transfer DNA, like that trace DNA, if you were like, let's say, you're in like a full hazmat suit and you take that hazmat suit off, it is virtually guaranteed that you end up with victim's DNA on you in the process of just taking that off. It's
All
this
right.
is
He
implausible.
was
Alex
not
Murdoch
seen.
didn't have much
He was
either.
seen by the eyewitness in the home. She did not see him in a hazmat suit. Okay,
Yeah.
so he would have taken this. He would have had to take this thing off in the home and walk out.
It was
you know,
a clear
carry-
hazmat suit.
No, that's not
and
true.
somehow
That's-
get it into his
Andrea-
car and dispose of it.
Andrea,
And Ian, the
respectfully.
point I
He
have to
carries
make
the
is,
hazmat
yes,
suit out.
No, that's
this
not
theory
true.
is that he
That's
is
not true.
simultaneously smart enough to be able to do this,
Yep.
to pull this off to where there is no DNA transfer whatsoever, and yet he's so dumb that he is out there circling the block in his own car
With
on
his cell
camera and has his cell phone with him. Like,
That's so much like Alex
would be
Murdoch, though.
basic things to cover your track.
I'll tell
Joe's
no,
pushing
We
back.
okay.
get to, like, how
Did
do I
it do
avoid
it?
Hold on.
Did
we
it
got
do
pushback
it?
from Joe.
Ungag the Joe. Ungag Joe.
Yeah, Joe, go ahead and push back.
All right. We all seen Dexter. And I'm sure
Okay.
Oh God.
How many are there in the
Dexter
word
gets
Dexter?
caught in 10 minutes in the real
Dexter.
world.
Here's the point I'm making. Okay, you're asking why it is that he would be better at hiding DNA than hiding his tracing of the car. What I'm saying is, if someone is a psycho, I mean, and he certainly, we know he studies what's his major in?
PhD in criminology.
In criminology.
Criminology.
Yeah, we've got how many people who study criminals here?
Hold on, no, hold on. I'm not saying this is his. I'm not saying this as evidence of his guilt. I want to be clear. What I'm saying is, it sounds as if the panel here is attempting to exonerate him, and what I'm saying is, everything that the entire world and public knows about criminology, and as someone who studies criminology would know, which a lot of it, you can laugh about Dexter, a lot of it you could learn from Dexter, and the things that he has, assuming he has done it, which I'm not saying he has, I don't know that he has, but I'm saying is, if he had done it, the types of things that he would be able or be more cognizant to protect himself from being caught on would be DNA, and the way that you could do that and
Except
not be
the guy
transferring.
studied digital forensics.
Digital forensics was
So
his
the one thing he would have
specialization.
known is leave the cell phone behind.
Okay, leave the cell phone.
That's a fair point.
Leave the
That's a
car
fair
that
point.
may have like
Let me just finish my point. Let me just finish my point, and then you can all jump on me. I'll just finish my point. With respect to the whole DNA thing, he doesn't have these. You say it's impossible for him to not get it on himself. What I'm saying is, if he effectively turned his car into before he went there, if he knew he was going to do this and he turned his car into an effective kill room where he basically covered his thing with plastic, put down towels over his seats and stuff like that, so that whatever DNA he would get on himself would not get on the car itself, that would be an effective way for his car to look clean, that he just rips all that off when he's done, and then after he does the kill, he goes back into his car and rips all that off. It's not that, I'm not saying he did it. Listen, I want to make my point. I'm almost done. I'm 30 seconds of being done. I'm not saying that's what he did. What I'm saying is, you're saying this is an exoneration that he definitely could not have done it, and I'm saying that's an easy way that to me he could have done it.
I don't know if we're saying that he could have done it. We're saying that they have the burden of proof and the evidence sucks.
100%. And that's
and they're going to have to prove how he was able to do this in a way that not only prevents,
I have the alligator.
I touched the plastic and touched the car.
Diva's got the alligator.
Aerosolization happens with blood. I mean, it's not.
There's two different things.
Hold on.
There's two different things.
We'll have to fight over who's got the better talking stick.
Yes.
I would like to know, I presume they checked his records and didn't see any purchases of Saran wrap, unlike in what they used against Zach. He bought rubber gloves.
Public. Nothing that's been made public.
Andrew, you said something about a witness having seen him at the place.
Yes.
They saw somebody with bushy eyebrows.
Somebody, a tall person, 5 foot or taller, wearing dark clothing with bushy
5 foot or
eyebrows.
taller. That covers a lot of ground.
5 foot 10 or taller.
Oh, okay.
Good, I'm clear. Yeah, that's okay.
Which, by the way, this description, he's so much taller than 5'10". Okay, and with how skinny he is, like, he looks extremely tall. Like 5'10" to me, that is nowhere in the ballpark.
Well, two things. I mean, to what Noah was saying, if my grandmother were to have turned her living room into a kill room, all she would have to do is take the plastic off of the sofa, and no one would know.
The thing is you think that, but it's actually really insanely difficult. We were talking about Dexter. In the real world, Dexter gets caught like in the first week because his techniques don't work. It's stuff that sounds good, but it doesn't actually function in the real world of modern forensics.
That was the second point I was going to make, though, is because we're all talking lawyerly here. Lawyers aren't on the jury, which is why you get Zachariah Anderson convictions. That's why you get Alec Murdoch convictions. It's basically the same lack of DNA, same lack of blood, same lack of anything. But the jurors go, well, it's a typical, he was arrested for something. Well, he's on trial for something, and we've heard really bad things about him.
Mm-hmm. That's the risk.
I 100%
that is 100% the risk.
I 100% agree that he's innocent until proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. And from what you're describing here, they're a very, very, very long way from being able to establish that. And if they cannot establish that, 1,000%, he should not be convicted. I'm all in agreement on that. There is a different thing between, are we going to convict this guy versus the public's thirst for trying to figure out, does it seem like he did it versus does it seem like it's impossible that he did it? These are two different conversations. Okay, the lawyer in us is going to talk about, we recognize his fundamental Sixth Amendment, 14th Amendment rights to due process, and that he should. What we see so far, he's very long way from being convicted and should not be convicted. I'm totally on board with that. I'm just simply talking about whether he could have done it versus whether he couldn't have done it. What he likely would have covered from the colloquial perspective of trying to assess his guilt rather than the legal perspective that we as attorneys usually engage in. And that's why I was saying, what sounds more likely as far as what someone would do versus wouldn't do, as far as the public trying to figure out, do we think he did it or not? That's why I'm bringing this. That's why I brought up the whole thing as far as him turning into a kill room, the type of thing he likely would know versus wouldn't know. I think there was good pushback from Runkle about the fact that criminologists would know about the cell phone data, and that I think that's a fair counterpoint along the same topic that I was trying to address. So that's what I wanted to point out. And I'm curious whether the panel genuinely thinks that he did not do it, or whether they simply think that he cannot be proven to have done it in a legal sense to be convicted.
I'll go with. I find it really hard to believe.
Problems.
I find it hard to believe that he could do the quadruple murders with the stabbing and not get any blood in his car. I just find that impossible to believe.
The other thing is that
OJ pulled it off.
I don't know whether he did it. I don't know whether or not they're going to be because it could be that trial opens up and all of our questions get answered, that they've got everything down, that none of this is, that all of this is squared away. But I've got all these questions. This is something where he's under substantial time pressure. It's like a 10-minute window. Mm-hmm. And it's so all of these big plans, it's like, if you give me hours to do something, sure, maybe I could do a big plan, but
even then, every plan goes to hell the immediate you have contact with the enemy, right? Mm-hmm. Every plan goes to hell once you try to actually execute it. To actually implement that in the real world with people who presumably are trying to fight back, and you're worried about being caught, and you're trying to get out of there in something of a panic, and not get blood anywhere. Good luck.
Did they do any toxicology reports on the 4 victims?
Those have not been made public, but yes, they did do toxicology as part of the autopsies.
Okay, because now first of all, I got suspicious only because we had talked about this with Barnes, where when you have a violent crime like this that goes unsolved or unresolved for an extended period of time, social pressure, public pressure, just to find somebody so everybody feels a little bit more at ease. I won't say hit pieces, but the information, and I haven't been following this thoroughly, but some of what I remember hearing at the time sounds to have been disproven, which plays into this idea of find somebody, the media will run with it, and now everybody's first impressions are emblazoned in their brains, and they cannot look at this guy without seeing a pervert or a sick murderer.
One last question, and it's back to the car. I apologize, but I didn't hear it addressed. Is this a case like Zachariah Anderson? What was significant to me was Zachariah Anderson's van was dirty, and they didn't find the evidence. Mm-hmm. So was Kohberger's car dirty and they didn't find any trace evidence, or was it immaculate and they didn't find any trace evidence? There is a difference. I just wanted to know.
I'll Google photos of the car here. Let's see.
Yeah, I don't know if we know that for sure. So the best knowledge that we have is from when he was stopped on the road trip back between WSU and his parents' home in Pennsylvania. He was stopped multiple times, I think in Indiana, by the State Patrol, and those are captured on body cam. So you get a little bit of a view of the interior of the car. Does it look impeccable? Not particularly. The descriptions of the things that are recovered from his car when the search was conducted doesn't sound like, it sounds like pretty much anybody's car. You throw your hiking shoes in there and, forget to take them out for a couple months.
Andrea,
situation.
New York Post says Bryan Kohberger meticulously cleaned his car before arrest. Report, Eric.
This is another one of the
law enforcement
anonymous law enforcement sources.
I shared the link in the private chat, Eric, if you want to pull it up so people know. I just it's funny. It's priming. You get.
I'm looking at a question, because if this car, in fact, it showed normal wear, tear, whatever, and did not have any signs of cleaning or excess cleaning,
no signs of cleaning.
Smell of ammonia.
That would help.
Bleach, white marks, nothing.
Because
carpet pulled up, nothing.
They show the video, like the body cam video in that, and you can see that the car is actually filthy.
I'm looking at it right now. Did you Eric, pull it up? If you hold on.
It doesn't look like the cleanest car I've ever seen in my life.
Look on the screen, David. Look.
That's meticulous.
I was watching it in a separate window. Yeah, look at that. Oh, but look at him. Look how guilty he looks. He's obviously guilty.
I think it's the eyebrows that do it. The eyebrows say I'm guilty. My God.
That guy in the passenger seat, does he have an alibi?
His dad.
In fairness, that's the outside of the car.
Well, his dad would share half his DNA. Dun, dun, dun.
And it's true. It is the outside of the car. You'd expect them to clean the interior, not the outside.
Now, the outside of the inside of my car is filthy.
How do you know you don't leave blood on the...
What kind of camera work is this for a cop, man? Does he not know where his camera is?
It's also really hard to clean a car to eliminate DNA. Like there's been over and over and over again, there are cases where people take their car, they get it detailed. They get it detailed by a second group of people. They go through it themselves with Q-tips.
I understand
everything. And then the police in 5 minutes are like, yeah, we got DNA. This guy's done.
Well, I understand that, but I'm saying if it doesn't look like it's been cleaned, it's even stronger for the defense, in my opinion.
Well, that's why shows like CSI, it's just like the two camps. It either teach you okay, I'm never going to get away with this, or hey, now I know how to get away with it better.
You're never going to get away with it.
To go along with that point, you would have to look at how far would you have to go to try to clean this car to actually succeed at that? I mean, from my perspective, you are tearing out the carpet. Okay, you're getting the dash out. I mean, you're going
to have to remove the seats, get to the runners of the seat. Clean up all that metal.
You're going to probably take this thing down to the frame. Okay.
No, you're going to set the car on fire and say that it got stolen and you don't know where it went. I mean,
here's the fun thing. Yeah. You think fire is enough? There are plenty of cases where people have literally burned their car into a hulk. And then forensic investigators are like, yep, we found DNA, we found fingerprints. Even burning your car into a hulk is not sufficient. So, if it's me, I'm not only just taking the car down to the frame, I'm running that frame through a metal grinder, taking those filings and dumping them into the ocean. That car, short of that car just
into the
vanishing.
sun.
Yeah. Short of the car just vanishing.
I should have talked about when Phil was here, but everyone saw that Phil got a threat from Michael Cohen yesterday on Twitter.
Oh, no. He buried the lead. No, of course not. What a jerk.
He did? What?
Oh, and that means none of you watched my videos? Oh, I have never been so... Oh, God. So I'll flip you the link if I can. Phil put out a tweet that called Michael Cohen a convicted perjurer. And then Michael Cohen said in response to him, you should know that I was never convicted of perjury, bar complaint to follow. Let me get to the tweet. And so then I put out a vlog.
I think there's better ways to phrase that than I was not convicted. It's
well, no, but that's he only pleaded guilty to lying to a financial institution. He referred to himself as a convicted perjurer in a CNN interview.
Okay, that'll kind of do it. Yeah,
Arthur Engeron referred to him as a convicted perjurer in his decision. He said a less forgiving fact finder might not take the word of a convicted perjurer. Here.
Well, there you go. Then that sounds like
but it's hilarious. Hold on, is this a private chat? Okay, grab that one and let me see if I can find the one where.
Really quickly, Joe, while I'm pulling all this up, you have an update. Of course, we were talking about you and you were late, probably napping, whatever you're doing. We were talking about your case, trying to get you help, but no, you weren't here. Don't have time for us. But now that you're here, no, I'm just kidding.
I was actually trying. I've been working very hard to try and garner public recognition of this in the hopes that I can get some star power attorney to pick up the case and take it over from me, because I feel very concerned that the court is going to look at me like I'm some crazy Trumper homeless person who they should ignore and not even listen to my legal arguments, which I think are not only prescient, but really important for the vitality of maintaining our First Amendment rights. So that's why I'm really looking, and I know that if I'm walking in there with a Dershowitz or, Turley, that they'll at least listen to the argument, whereas now I question whether they are gonna even be zoning out while I'm talking.
That's a good one. How about Tom Fitton?
What did you say something, Joe?
Judicial Watch.
Precisely.
No, that would be a good choice.
So I don't know how to. I can try. Everyone gives me contact information for Dershowitz. I'll tell you right now, the phone number they give I get Verizon Wireless cannot connect to this number.
I messaged my contact, Joe, with for Dershowitz. I'm going to see if I can message other people I know.
Maybe Megan Kelly can help bring attention to it. I don't know. I know some of you know her. Tim Pool. At this point, it's really been contained within the law tube type of community, which is a nice size, but by national standards, it's not.
I pinged Tim Pool's.
I think we're all just disrespected.
I pinged Tim Pool's booker. I'd asked David too, but he's blocked. Oh,
I have a workaround there.
Update on that. This is where I have an update. The reason I was late is because when I covered the Ghislaine Maxwell trial, I actually made a couple of contacts in the media. And there's one guy who at the time was working for the Epoch Times, but I was like, oh, he and I really got along. We became friendly there. I haven't spoken to him since then. So he gave me his number, and I called him, and he told me he's now working for Newsweek. He also told me that Newsweek has asked him to find fresh stories from New York City relating to the Trump trial. So that this is right up the alley of what they're looking for him to find. And I told him,
it's Newsweek, dude. I can already see it though. Some crazy whack job Jew lawyer out of New York is trying to. This is Newsweek, dude. I don't know.
No, I understand. Look, you know what? He claims that there's a new editor there who's trying to find more balance. I don't know if that's true. I don't know. I'm simply telling you that I was doing a write up trying to explain to him procedurally what had happened, what my legal arguments are. And I basically wrote him a very lengthy email and gave him links to where he can find everything that I was identifying. And that's so that's what I was doing basically until 12:30 today. So
you could ping Harmeet Dillon, might be interested, but I don't know who has a license.
She can't do it. I spoke with Ron
Coleman.
They
already represent Trump. Ron Coleman or somebody answered and said that they can't do it because they're representing Trump already. So.
You need a lefty lawyer who forget a conservative or someone who's like right of mouth. You need legal.
I said legal.
Legal. Yeah, call it legal line.
I know he might legal's video on the gag order last night on my show.
He might have better luck with his FOIA request.
Legal. He's perfect.
Well, Tom Fitton of Judicial Watch is the FOIA master.
Dude,
so
I'm gonna.
It would be worth getting with him. He's not a lawyer, apparently. That chat's saying, but he's still somebody who has a lot of swing and a lot of contacts.
All right. Look, I'll keep going forward with this. I'll tell you all, and I'll say this publicly. I will keep going forward with this to the best of my abilities. I am a commercial litigator by trade for the last
Gloria Allred.
Yeah, she would be perfect. She would be,
yeah,
right?
She would, and she'd be noisy.
Yeah, but I'll tell you right now that I will keep pushing this forward. I just feel as if me doing this on my own, just simply because of my voice and the fact that I'm asking them to do what they don't want to do. Like they all want to give blessing to Judge Merchan's order, and something that they feel that they've already addressed because they've taken care of Trump's motion. So they're going to basically be like, we already heard all these arguments, and not recognize the fact that I'm introducing brand new arguments which are rooted exclusively on Supreme Court First Amendment law that Trump's lawyers haven't really fixated on nearly as much as I think would be appropriate.
Joe, you need to get on if you can. Pull every string or contact and see if you can be on Megyn Kelly to talk about the case. And then while you're on there, you could say, hey, I need help. I know where I am, blah, 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 blah. Somebody said Cenk Uygur. Believe it or not, that's not a terrible idea. I would go for Anna Kasparian. Because she's in a weird little
that's a pretty good call.
To start kind of going with these odd directions and Sitch and Adam.
Dude, I just tagged
to Kasparian. That might be a whole different interesting angle. Even if they're mocking you, it'll get you visibility.
I just tagged legal Joe. Expect action.
Immediately.
You don't need a legal team. You need the Eagle team.
Legal and I used to be friends back in the day.
Really?
Yeah. Well, we had some.
Do I have to hide my video yesterday, which is titled "Legal Eagle Teaches Me Gag Law"?
No.
Is that what you titled it?
Yeah.
Yes. Yeah.
That's a good title.
Dirty. No, it's that makes me
that's the point. Okay, so let's shift on. I'm going to go to Steve to lead on this because Steve is mute most of the stream. He's like putting in chats to answer. He's like, I'm not gonna put my budge my head in. Somebody got convicted this week. Miss Gutierrez in the Rust trial, and
sentenced.
I'm sorry. Sorry, she was. You are right. That's why you're the lawyer, and I am.
So you're the law talking guy.
Exactly. You're that guy. Anyway, yes, she was sentenced this week, and everybody is talking about the max, 18 months. Somebody died, but I'm curious what people think, because I think there was some more information that came out during sentencing that maybe colored the result, like certain phone calls that were made from jail that came up.
I mean, I'll let Steve go.
Well, actually, of course, Jeff brought it up in the private chat, so he may know more details about it than I do. But what I did see was the judge was citing comments that she made in conversations about disparaging the jurors and things like that. And so, the judge might have given her the maximum sentence anyway, but it never helps your cause if there's evidence that you have no remorse, you don't accept any responsibility, you don't see your part in it. It gives the judge the opportunity to put the smack down. But if Jeff or Ian know more of the details, I'd be interested.
Even the prosecutor said, I was thinking about asking for less. I think it was 85%. But then she made all these phone calls from jail.
Well, she said basically, I hadn't decided what sentence I would ask for, and then I looked at the jail calls, and we're asking for the maximum. And like the way she slow rolled this was just beautiful. She totally screwed Bowles, because Bowles doesn't really know what he's up to. Bowles comes in asking for this conditional discharge with all of these. He's actually got some great letters. Some of the letters are not that great, but there's a lot of letters in support of Hannah, and a lot of them are quite praiseworthy. And then she's just like, here's all the jail calls. And one of them in particular got the judge's special attention. And that one was that she specifically said, I don't have to be shaking all the bullets all the time.
Yeah.
Nice.
It's like
nice.
Yeah.
That is actually your entire job.
Hold on a second.
Yeah.
Does she not appreciate that they're recording and surveilling her cars?
I've talked to people in New Mexico. They use Telmate. And Telmate has two different recorded messages. If you call a lawyer, like a number that's recognized as a lawyer number, it goes, thank you for using Telmate, and you talk to the person. If you're using a number that's not recognized as a lawyer number, then it goes, this call is being recorded.
No three-way calls permitted. And then
somebody said it was the legal aid she was talking to, or the paralegal she was talking to. So that would be interesting. But I actually think that Hannah did herself no favors, because her statement and Thell's was even worse. Because she did the whole thing of, I'm so sorry this happened to the industry and blah, 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 blah. Yeah. She didn't take any accountability whatsoever of her own. Then her father comes along, and he didn't even say, you know what? I wanted her father to say, you know what? I'm getting old. I don't have much time left with my daughter. My daughter is important to me, because she's already convicted. Yeah. Correct me if I'm wrong. This is not the time to retry the case, from what I understand. That's for appeals or whatever. But when you're making a statement, aren't you supposed to be saying why this person, you should show leniency, you should do this, this is why they're important? And then Bowles comes along and reads a statement that is full of remorse, but it didn't come from Hannah.
Well, and so she's remorseful anytime only Bowles is in the room. Like when no one's looking, she's remorseful. But it was so bad because Hannah's statement was pre-written. She's reading off a page, and I'm going, Bowles, you had the opportunity to look at what she was about to say, and you chose, and you went, yeah, that's fine. That's good. Bowles has been the worst. But yeah, Thel Reed, there was a second where I thought, oh my God, this guy's about to throw himself under the bus to save his daughter, because he's hesitating. And I'm like, is he about to admit that he had something to do with the rounds? Is that what's going on? And that's not where he goes. Like, I thought that might be what he was about to do. That would have been helpful, but of course there's all sorts of reasons why he wouldn't want to do that. And I don't know if he was the source or not.
But he showed no care about her. It was like he showed more care about Helena Hutchins, that poor woman who died, nothing for his daughter. Really, I felt no sentiment, just anger about this, but nothing about his daughter, who he supposedly loves. I mean, I think it was devastating.
Well, even the statements about Helena Hutchins were really dismissive. He's like, of course it's terrible for that poor woman and all of her friends, but this court, and then he launches in on an attack on the court. I'm like,
well, for me, the two weirdest parts were both the victim impact statements. The victim impacts, it wasn't a victim impact statement. It was a wake. People telling these weird stories about when they were in college.
Oh, yeah,
I mean, that happens all the time.
Yeah, Gloria Allred with the music.
Yeah, but who had that on their bingo card that now reading statements for the family?
Mm-hmm. I'm wondering if the music wasn't a specific FU to all of us here who've been covering it, because Joel Souza took a little, he's like, everybody's been finding this as sick entertainment. But they play, what was it, Pink Floyd's Wish You Were Here?
Yes.
And then so many people got a copyright hit on that. And
I didn't.
Like, I knew it was coming when I did my video. So I'm like, we're muting this part because nope. But yeah, the music was, I don't know why they were allowed to play music.
That was really gross. I mean, the mother statement was very impactful, the quiet, just whatever. But then they did that little montage. I'm like, are you kidding me? I mean, and when you have Gloria Allred out there, I'm sorry, I'm immediately shutting down and checking out, because that woman changed. She's the biggest ambulance.
She took the time to introduce herself in the most formal way possible when she started speaking. Like, we don't know who we are. I'm named Gloria Allred. This is my exact firm, and we're so. I'm like, geez, you have to turn this into an advertising tool.
Yeah, my reaction was literally that Gloria. Yeah, that Gloria Allred.
That one, yes.
Yeah, no, not the.
She's got a lawsuit against everybody, Jeff. Gloria Allred is the chief, the one standing lawsuit against everybody.
Everybody.
And I mean, it is against everybody. Even the widowers lawsuit has been settled. The Hutchins lawsuit got settled out by Baldwin and them. Part of it was to actually get the movie finished, which is sort of gross. I mean, that was literally a major part of it, was that the husband knew that the movie would be done and he was an executive producer.
I don't know how I feel about it.
It's a kind of because this is part of the Baldwin chasing movies and films and things for a while, so that's always a little weird.
Yeah, I feel gross about that. I'll watch Rust when it's on a plane or something.
Well, see, I think it was Baldwin just pulling some shenanigans on something, because that was the whole deal. I mean, they need something, we'll give them points on the movie. Which also, I mean, if you don't see the movie, you're taking money away from this family.
Yeah,
I thought it was a really shady.
That's a great point. That's a great point. I didn't even think about that.
Yeah, I don't know. So I mean, but honestly, I didn't think Hannah did herself any favors in Jailhouse Calls. She didn't do any favors in the statement, but she did all of us a favor, because anybody who is really concerned about her, I'm sure it gives them second thoughts to say, you know what? Yeah, maybe I'm okay with her being sentenced.
Well, the maximum sentence 18 months. That's what she got.
It's very light.
And people in chat are asking if she's ever going to be an armorer. No, she can't. She can't.
No.
She can't handle a
firearm.
firearm.
That's a firearm.
She wanted to be. She was asking for the conditional discharge because that would have allowed her to maintain her firearm rights. And the judge was like, "That's obviously not happening."
Oh no. That judge hated it.
That's why I thought she would get 12 months, was just for that reason, so she could still,
That judge is done with her. Take her away. Please take her.
I think that she was probably looking at 12 months up until the jail calls. And I think that probably got her another 6.
And I mean, I don't, a stupid question. Time off if she behaves properly, any time. She wasn't detained.
Time served, maybe.
85%, isn't it?
What time did she serve already?
7/8?
A month.
Because it's that special violent offense.
Yeah.
I believe it's 7/8.
She gets
so I think
4
she
days.
gets a slight discount.
4 days of credit for every month she's
something like that. Yeah.
Okay. Well, she's already got a month in, so if that might count for 4.
So James Crumley, he had some bad phone calls too that got cited against him during sentencing. So it's been a bad couple of weeks.
Don't make the calls when they say this call's being recorded. At least with Crumley, they actually have the recording where it says this call's being recorded. It's like, well, thank you for telling me.
The other thing is, if I'm Bulls, I'm firing my paralegal. Because she is, there's various details about, her calling the prosecutor the B word, her suggesting that if Hannah's mom goes off in court, that the worst that they could do is sentence Hannah, like is give Hannah's mom a few days. I'm like, I'm sorry, you can't be saying that kind of stuff about the prosecutor and about like subverting the court process. And you certainly can't be saying it where you know you're being recorded and you're going to get caught. You are too dumb to be my paralegal anymore. And you're too unethical to be my paralegal.
Well, consider her boss,
Best of luck in your new profession. Like,
all right, really quickly before I segue, I want to get through some money because I love money. Sorry. Rumble rants.
Oh, this jokes. Okay.
Not sorry at all.
63 Telecaster said, I kind of thought Steve was a Telecaster guy. So I don't know. I don't know if Steve has any Telecasters or if he's a Stratocaster guy or.
Well, I mean, there's a few on the wall there.
All right.
They're good guitars, right? So
Rivka, the Jay Namer, said, I learned with the Murdoch trial that the prosecution's expert witness can say it could have happened that way and will still be considered guilty beyond a reasonable doubt with similar evidence. Okay.
The line is consistent with, which means basically is not disproven by, but sounds to jurors like this establishes.
Or you can just go full Zachariah Anderson Gravel and go, well, maybe this happened, and then maybe he did this, then maybe he went over and did that, and still get a conviction somehow.
Yeah. Let me see. Murph's Turf gave 5 Layback Law memberships. I did turn on memberships to the channel because of the request, which I do deeply appreciate. And for the benefit of members, I will be taking, because the channel's been around different iterations, all of the history before Layback Law will be for members only, and I'll keep up the recent episodes, etc. But the whole back catalog will be available for all time for members, which hopefully gives a little bit of a benefit for having that if you like to go view older episodes, older cases, things like that we discuss. And this one here, I have no idea if anybody knows about this or not, but it's what the hell is going on with Kim Blandino? Law Talk with Mike in Chicago has done some, but I can't make heads or tails. Please summarize. Jeff's laughing, so you're it.
Oh, Kim Blandino. He's the Clark County, Las Vegas permanent complainant in everything. He's soft sit to the core. He represents himself, never wins anything, keeps himself out of jail most of the time. It's just an absolute crap fest whenever he's involved, but it's funny because he's a true believer in the soft sit ideology. So that's what makes
what is the ideology? I'm completely clueless.
I mean, just the whole, it's the traveler on the land. I'm just a person. I'm, the government, the laws don't apply to me. And he's
sovereign citizen.
Yes.
Yeah, he's a whole soft sit guy. Yeah.
Oh, okay. Okay.
If you haven't read Meads versus Meads, you got to read it sometime. It's an amazing decision. It's Canadian, but it's cited everywhere because it is a rundown on them and that crap.
See, and I get sad and frustrated because I'm going to be in Vegas at the end of May for a few days, and Ari Jacob, because every Thursday I've been doing the OJ trial for the last year and a half, and Ari was going to hook me up with OJ at the sports bar where he was like 6 weeks from now. Can't you even hang on 6 more weeks? So I'm probably gonna reach out to Kim Blandino and see if I can talk to him while I'm there.
Kidding, Ari knew freaking OJ. She
knows everybody in Vegas.
Well, she knows me. I met her in Vegas, by the way, this past weekend at the Viva Barnes event. But wow, I knew her connections were deep, but didn't know she knew that. Okay, so one more. Ian, you said Umar Zamir. Who? What? Can you tell me what that is?
So this is a Canadian case, and it's with the jury. They are deliberating. They are making a decision on it, and it's interesting because it's a self-defense-ish case involving a death of a police officer. So what happens, and this is kind of similar to that undercover officer's case that happened recently, but essentially they wanted to arrest him for some reason, and he's sitting in his van with his wife, but they approach him in plain clothes, and they start shouting at him, and he freaks out. He thinks that he's about to be attacked. So he guns it. Well, he starts, doing this. They pull a van up behind him. And so he guns it. and he drives away, and he finally stops when they point guns at him. And that's when he finds out that in gunning it, he ran over a police officer who he says he never saw. So right now he is facing murder charges, and it's an interesting case because it is really it's really a case about like police tactics in a lot of ways, because we're seeing in Canada and in the States more and more of these very intensive takedowns on people who maybe need it less and less, and more use of like plainclothes officers to get close to things and this kind of thing. So right now the jury is deciding essentially if he had intent to kill, if he was driving recklessly, if any of these things. And yeah, his wife was pregnant at the time. His young son was in the vehicle. No criminal history. So suddenly this theory is basically that this family man, for no reason, decides to kill a cop.
You're muted, Kurt. Oh, never mind.
They're going for murder and not reckless or manslaughter.
Manslaughter is lesser and included. So if they charge murder, like the US, it often is that they have to sort of decide. In Canada, they just, like, a lot of this stuff will just be on the thing. Mm-hmm. But yeah, the Crown is pursuing manslaughter as well. So they're going for everything, basically, whatever they think they can make stick. So yeah, it's interesting.
Wow. Speaking of people that are accused of murder for running over policemen, how about Karen Reed? That's getting underway.
Oh, that's underway.
Yes.
Yeah, what's going on? Who wants to?
How many of you are watching that? Who else is watching that?
I won't be covering it. I'll be watching
it.
Yes. Me too. I'm not going to like live stream the whole thing. It's going to be way too long, but I am fascinated with this one. So I came into it, pretty late in the game. I've been aware of, the case and kind of the back and forth, the free Karen Reed stuff, Turtle Boy, just kind of tangentially aware of all that. But it's only been recently that I had a chance to really, dig in, start reading a whole bunch of the court pleadings and kind of get a sense of where we're at with all this stuff. And boy, that one is a wild ride.
Yeah.
I don't know what you guys think, but for me, it's going to come down to the autopsy. Turtle
Can
Boy,
you give a summation of what the basic case is for the chat? What is this case about? What's the scenario?
Karen Reed has been indicted for second-degree murder, and the argument is that she killed her boyfriend, John O'Keefe, who was a Boston police officer, basically by backing into him with her car, threw him into a snowbank in front of the home of another police officer, a guy named
with
Bryan
13
Albert,
police officers inside having a party.
who was partying with a whole bunch of other police officers, who's friends with the police officers who did all of the investigation of the case. And that's the basic outline of what she's charged with.
Yeah. Then you can get into all the other cool details, like the girl who drove around, tried to find the body, was Googling for some reason, how long does it take for a body to die in the cold
at like 2 in the morning. And then there's these interviews with witnesses where because there was a lot of deleting of messages and call records and internet searches and things like that. She had gone in and deleted all this stuff from her phone because it was happening at a time when supposedly nobody yet had found him and knew that he was dead. And so like there's a witness interview where one of the witnesses involved in this drive along is trying to explain some of these deleted calls. Like, what was this call that you had at like 4 something in the morning? Oh, well, that's when I learned that he was dead. Well, nobody else knew that he was dead then. So like, how did you guys, learn that if you didn't already know at the time? So a lot of these very smelly circumstances. The defense is alleging this is a police cover-up, that this is a frame job.
Totally.
What actually happened is that he was beat up in the home of this police officer, and then they threw him out in the snowbank and left him to die. So that's why, from my perspective, the autopsy is going to be absolutely critical, because you have defense experts saying none of this, his injuries, his condition at the time of his death, this is not consistent with a car accident. He's been beat up. And so Turtle Boy had gotten a hold of the autopsy photos. He's had a link to the defense in this case. He's published a lot of the evidence that they plan to present. So he published the autopsy photos. Somebody sent them to me. I did see them. And yeah, they raised pretty serious questions in my mind. He's got a fracture. He's got it's classic. It's the classic, you break your hand because you hit somebody, and I mean
more than that, the injuries on his arm are clearly dog bites. And it's on the arm where a trained police dog would attack your arm the way they do in all the training videos. And the guy that owned the house had a German Shepherd that mysteriously disappeared immediately, to the point where the judge, I've never seen a judge issue an order saying, find that dog.
Did they kill the dog?
You find that dog.
I think it's at the White House now. It's the one biting everybody.
That's the thing. They don't know where the dog is.
That's enough to warrant the death penalty right there.
If they break bite mark analysis into this, I'm here for it.
Yeah, well, and
phrenology.
The cop that owned the house completely remodeled the basement of his house shortly thereafter. They filled in the swimming pool with cement. It's weird as hell, this whole
And he sold the house. I mean, he sold the house. They never apparently searched the house or anything like that.
This is clearly a frame-up job. I mean, how many cases do you see where defendants have the entire courtroom packed and people outside cheering them on? She has an entire fan section. You don't see that in cop murder cases that often.
Well, I think they've been able to tap in on a lot of just there's a lot of history of corruption in law enforcement in Boston, as many people know. Anybody who's heard of Whitey Bulger, knows a lot of those details. And
that was FBI too.
And that was FBI, yeah. But so yeah, I think that there is receptivity to that argument in a place like suburbia outside of Boston, maybe more than there would be in like a more rural kind of place where we have 100% faith in our law enforcement and their stuff like that. So
I don't know, rural areas, there's a lot of times that you have literally kingpin sheriffs. So it depends. It depends on the area for sure. Let's see, Steve, you want to talk about that? That's that Riverside stabbing that it didn't work out well for him.
I was just thinking, we've been talking about stabbing a lot. If anybody watched that case where the guy got into the confrontation with the younger people in the river in Wisconsin, Nicholas Mew, and stabbed, I think 5 of them, killed one of them, and they claimed it was self-defense. And there's video of it, right? So everybody should have the same opinion because it's video evidence. But boy, was there a lot of split there that it was his fault. It wasn't his fault. He was being attacked. He started it, this, that, and the other. But the jury did not find that he had self-defense. I know we talked about this case a little bit, and I looked it up after Andrew asked the question of what the law was. And you don't have a general duty to retreat there, but if you instigate a fight, then you do. And all of that. So it was a little bit complicated legally, but I think you just look at the video and have an opinion of whether you think he was defending his own life or whether he started it.
What are your thoughts?
Well, I got to tell you, Steve, when I saw the video where I thought the defense was going to have the hardest time with selling the self-defense was the proportionality. It's not that he wasn't threatened or that he didn't have a right to defend himself, but was his response disproportionate? I didn't watch the trial, so I don't know if that argument, was anything like the prosecutor focused on, but so I wondered if you knew.
Well, I think a weird thing in that trial that I saw a lot of it was some state witnesses clearly were enhancing their memory over time about seeing punches and things like that. But then the defendant did testify. Personally, I didn't find him credible about anything. I mean, he clearly was being attacked there. Whether he instigated or not, it's a different story. But you need to if you're claiming self-defense, but it was like, here's why you don't want your client on the stand, because he had lied to the police about the knife, lied about the circumstances, lied about this, lied about that. And he had to admit some of that and then said, well, I can't really remember those bad things, but I remember the good things, like I was being attacked. And so I don't think he helped himself there. Although there are a lot of people who look at it and go, look, these teens surrounded him, attacked him. He had no choice but to stab him. But, he got that knife out before anybody touched him. And then he had got that stabbing time expression on his face that they paused the video at, and I don't think that looked good for him either.
I saw
this is why you don't talk to the police, because
Yeah.
that statement, when you get up to testify, that's cross-examination material.
Oh yeah, and it didn't do him any good.
And it doesn't matter what you say.
I saw a good portion of it, but as soon as he testified that he's claiming self-defense, and then he says, "Well, I threw the knife away." That's when you're.
Well, I see somebody's claiming I don't have any clue about the case. I said he wasn't touched. I think he probably was touched by that, and maybe by the girls first. I don't think he was punched or anything, because I saw that knife down by his side while he was still vertical. After he was hit into the water, he got his stabbing game going pretty quick. He stabbed 5 people in like about half a minute.
Well, yeah, no, they pushed him under the water. I mean, they saw it. It's just a bunch of people behaving like idiots and then reacting like idiots. But
that's a problem too.
It's ambiguous enough at that time. But
that's a problem too. Like everybody, how many people remember the Rodney King video, and how bad that video was? However, I'm not going to say excuses everything, but it did lead to the exoneration of the cops. That was only the last part of a much longer video where it showed Rodney King, and I think he was dusted up on Angel Disc and was throwing cops around like they were toys and everything. And we just kind of trim that part out and just say, oh my God, look what just happened. Horrible thing. And that's why the cops are exonerated, but we never discuss the first part of that video. You're going to correct me, Joe? Sorry.
I am going to respectfully correct you.
All right.
Because I actually read an article. Many of you are probably too young to remember Rodney King, but the video that Eric and I remember, because we're old farts.
I remember too.
had and you're a younger fart.
I remember where I was.
It displayed a horde of cops around a black man on the ground, and they're punching and kicking him and punching and kicking him. And when he sued for violation of his civil rights, that video, everyone was like, of course he's going to win. And it actually taught us the brilliance of the attorneys for the defense, which they ended up succeeding in defending from that civil action, was that they played it for the jury over and over and over and over again. Because when you see something, this shows you how something can be normalized. When you see something that looks at first glance and is horrific to watch, if you see it over and over and over again for weeks and months, it teaches such an important lesson about human nature and how we can be desensitized to potentially seeing the worst things in the world. Because when you see it over and over again, it's just another time. Oh, here's that foot coming into his gut. Oh, here's this hand that's hitting him in the face. It's like, yeah, I've seen this over and over again. You're traumatized by it, and it's really a lesson to us to sort of take stock of when that may be happening to us culturally, that we become desensitized to things that are actually horrific. But that was such a brilliant piece of lawyering that they said we knew if we showed it to them over and over and over again, it would lose all of its shock value, and they would recognize that there's no basis here on legal principles. It was really, and
also they did include the rest of the video too.
Right. Okay. Because it does give context as well. But they said that they purposefully tried to desensitize the jury to it by breaking it down moment by moment over and over and over and over again.
Everybody, I have to go.
That's fine. We're wrapping up.
I don't want to start the exodus.
Yeah, of course you.
I hit you in the private chat.
It's your fault.
To me.
David said show's over. Last call.
Hold on a second. What's in the private chat here?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
I was asking about
some requests for you.
I want to CC you on my email to Dersh explaining the situation. Yeah, I'm glad you asked, but a lot of people do it without asking. The worst,
but it's because I want to give you a prompt to actually follow up and talk to them and say, hey, I got CC'd on this email.
Do it.
It was sent to you. So just drop your email in the private chat so I can.
I was about to say it out loud. That would have turned my second account into a total overrun account. Stay tuned, everybody.
After I send it, I'd appreciate it.
All right, David, thank you. Robin Sage. The case is Karen Reed, I believe that you're.
Yeah, Commonwealth versus Karen Reed.
And we'll go ahead and wrap things up since David shut it down. Actually, we're going to anyway. Steve.
Is he backstage, or did he really leave without giving me his email?
No, he's gone.
He didn't give me his email.
You'll have to. Yeah. He's on Twitter.
He sent it to me recently, I know. But,
Steve, what do you have coming up?
Well, I'm going to call out that last post you brought up there from Robin Sage. I wonder if that's an 18 series guy there, Eric. Because if you know what Robin Sage is, then you would wonder that.
I don't know what that is. So.
That's what they call the exercise you have to do before you can graduate out of SF school. So in Pineland, North Carolina, the fictional nation of Pineland, which is populated by rednecks, and you go exercise that in guerrilla warfare, and you graduate or you don't graduate out of phase 3.
Wow, we learn something new every week.
A cool screen name. But yeah, I can't post much other than shorts because we are moving. That's why I'm down here in the basement, because all the stuff above me is packed. So hopefully we'll have that done sometime. I was hoping to die here, but it didn't work out.
I don't know.
There's still time.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks, Kurt. Glass still half full.
Jeff, what do you have going on?
Well, we got effing Friday stream tomorrow. Just the Grifty panel going on. We got a Maritime Monday. Probably do some more the bridge updates. Then coming up next week's probably more of the Clayton Eckerd tonsil twins case.
All right, Andrea, you have another
Exciting.
video coming out?
Well, I am working on all kinds of stuff. As you can see from my little banner here, I have launched a Substack. And so I'm going to be putting out a lot of my content there. Still doing things on YouTube, so don't worry about that. I last time I was on was right after I'd done my very first live stream ever. And so I've done a couple of those now. And boy, I don't know why you guys didn't sell me on this earlier. It's a good format. Just goes a little bit long. So I do still like to do the shorter pieces to kind of just help people kind of get things in a short period of time. But so I've been looking at the Karen Reed case, did a live stream to follow the motion in limine hearing that was held last Friday. Planning to definitely live stream some of the parts of the trial. I'm going to be listening to the trial. So want to pay attention to some of the good stuff for sure. A lot of things to say about Kohberger. I'm very interested, something that has not come up today, but really came across my radar was the second accuser against Trevor Bauer has been criminally charged with, down in Arizona with some serious felony charges, basically alleging that, this was fraudulent. She was trying to essentially like extort money from them. So she's, facing a pretty serious criminal case there. I plan to definitely pay attention to that as well.
Well,
so,
and when I was talking about the tonsil twins case, I was talking about this Clayton Eckerd case is essentially the same thing in the same county. Same
Crazy.
deal. Guy gets oral, and apparently she ends up being pregnant with twins a couple of days later. Same story.
Yeah. So wild stuff. So anyway, come check out my Substack or find me on YouTube, find me on Twitter. I'll be continuing to run my mouth about the cases that I find interesting, and hope you enjoy it.
Awesome. Ian, what do you have going?
Too many things, although they seem to be on a theme of like bad lawyers right now, because I've got a video that
you're covering Atlanta? Oh, I'm sorry.
Well, I've got a video that should be coming out later about that weird intervener. But there's also a bunch of cases that are going on in Canada right now with lawyers who have decided to do interesting things, like a guy who sued his students for cyber flirting with him and leading him to believe that they were interested in a relationship. That got thrown out so hard by the courts. So we're going to be covering that to laugh at it. And also Jeanette Braun, who is she's a lawyer who is sort of an IP lawyer, but she sent one of the most unhinged cease and desist letters I've ever seen, as well as called in a wellness check on a content creator over a dispute. So I've been covering that a whole lot. So right now,
hold on. Wellness check, isn't that like a variant of a SWAT?
Pretty much, yeah. She calls and she says this person is talking about eating organs and drinking blood and is committing an extortion, and like some of the first bit is it's a bit. She does like a morbid kind of channel, so it's like, yeah, okay, that's obvious to anybody watching it, but not the way it's communicated to the police. And the extortion is just obviously not extortion. It says something like, what you're doing is stupid and you should put me in touch with your PR person, which is clearly not extortion. It's just like, mockery, but she calls it extortion. And she, in this wellness check call, repeatedly calls herself a federal attorney because she does like copyright and IP stuff. So she appears in U.S. federal courts. So
if anybody hasn't seen Ian's coverage of her, watch it. It's absolutely hysterical. That's some. I love it whenever she comes up in your streams.
She's bizarre.
No, look who comes in at the last second here. All right, so we'll just go right to it. Nate, what do you have coming up? Oh,
give me 1 second. I'll be right there. Just start with somebody else.
We're closing out. Okay. All right, Kurt, what do you have going on?
Yeah, so I had a pretty successful stream the other night when I was talking about the Jan 6ers are at the U.S. Supreme Court on the issue of whether or not they can be charged with obstruction. Pretty interesting case, and I'm looking forward to covering some Supreme Court oral arguments from cases that were recent. There is one that caught my attention that's trying to clarify what it means to have ineffective assistance of counsel, trying to clarify some of the benchmarks for that. So it should be an interesting case. Maybe Andrea could join me for that. It'd be fun. And we could, there's also one that I'm doing on this guy who is a mayor of I think a fairly minor town was accused of receiving bribes. And his justification was, well, they weren't bribes. They were gratuities that I received after the fact. So you see, they couldn't have been influencing me to do anything. They could have been influencing me to do anything because they were just gratuities received after I'd already done the thing. And his case is at the U.S. Supreme Court right now on whether or not gifts are bribes or not. So that's fun.
Oh God.
So yes.
Yeah.
And it's also fun because of the specific section number. Is he guilty of 18 USC 666?
Oh. I love that. I love that. Well, before I get to Nate, who I still see the microphone's muted, and Joe to close out, of course, I want to make a pitch. Or almost to 27,000 subscribers on this channel. Only need like 40 people. There's 1,700, 1,800 people watching. I'm sure that maybe if you feel charitable and you like this kind of content and you like seeing Joe's face buried by a slogan, you can go ahead and subscribe. I would deeply appreciate it. You get to hang out with lawyers like these every week. Sometimes Nate too, who's coming in. Seriously, I hope you consider subscribing. It does help a lot, helps get the word out, and I appreciate it very much. Nate, what do you have coming up?
Oh, damn. Back to me already? First, for the people in the this brother, right, Joe? Because Joe's been handling the MAGA country piece. So yes, this is MAGA country. Nigeria. This is MAGA country. So
I miss Juicy. Juicy.
Jesse. I don't know. So everybody knows I do my VODs, which have been killing it. So yeah, so the VODs have been killing it. Dr. Hines is in the chat. He's been sharing the VODs. We got upcoming is the Dalton Madness with the Super Mayor. If you guys haven't been following that story, you got to follow it. It's an insane story about the Super Mayor. And we got a whole bunch of other little things coming up. So if you like quick hits, 10 minutes or less, videos that just talk about the madness of the law, then please check that out. And please check out my last video on what's his name? Trevor Bauer, because that video is insane what happened to that guy. That guy, number one, I think he just likes crazy women. But the extortion attempt was incredible. Uncivil did a great video on that too. So
hold on, Nate. I just saw this came in. Very interesting timing. We are not doing a stream after this one, but there is something coming with Nate and Eric.
Oh yes,
something big. Ooh. We're not going to go into details, but I think it's going to be big. What do you think, Nate?
Oh yeah. No, I think it's going to be big. We're working on it in the background, so it's going to be huge. So yes. Oh yeah, and tonight I'm going to be on Legal Vices. Joe doesn't invite me on the streams anymore, but I will be on with Legal Vices too. I'm too big. You're too big. You are.
Joe, I was like Tucker Carlson or Nate the lawyer, so I haven't invited either of them.
Joe is stupid because Joe's first stream that was ever big was from me, and we had such a great time. I think we spent the whole day together. It was such a great stream. So me and Joe have been doing this for a long time. So
Joe, all you had to say is today's the Sabbath. I can't have you.
There you go.
And you would have had you out right there. Perfect out. All right. Now the tradition is that Joe likes to wrap the show up with whatever's going on with him, and then some words of wisdom or words.
Yeah. So I will say that I'm Good Logic. I urge you all to follow me at goodlogic.locals.com. You're hopefully already following on YouTube and or Rumble. But yeah, goodlogic.locals.com. I'm presenting a lot of updates about the case that I'm in my efforts to try and get Trump ungagged, that I'm suing personally in my own name. Everyone, I want everyone to understand that I do not feel I'm properly equipped for this. I'm a commercial litigator by trade. I'm here because the best analogy I can give you is that I'm seeing a raging fire of our constitutional rights, and I happen to be standing closest to it. And so I'm taking whatever water I can, and like someone who's not completely a novice, because I'm a litigator for the last 25 years, so I'm far more equipped than most New Yorkers to do this. But there are scores of people out there who are far better equipped to put out this fire as professional firemen than me, as someone who's sitting here saying, "Oh, I guess I hooked the hose up over here." So no one should think that I think this is about me. It's definitely not about me. It's not about Donald Trump. This is because Donald Trump is going to be gone in 10 years. He's not going to be part of anything significant in 10 years. No one's, whether you love him or hate him, he's gone. But the precedents that are being set today as to how we are bastardizing our First Amendment protections will be here and affecting us and our children and our grandchildren, so that by the time that 20, 30 years from now rolls around, that generation will not recognize First Amendment rights the way you and I take for granted today, because they're basically saying that the license to issue a gag and where they can start applying tests to issue a gag, because of this very scary man, whether you consider him genuinely scary or comically scary, doesn't matter, because this test is being changed. And it's going to be changed, and it's affecting him today. And once the state has the power to do it, if this is not overturned, this will be affecting many thousands of people within the next decade, 2 decades, and we won't remember what our protections look like. So I'm urging you